A few months ago, we asked Carla Hayden, the dynamic director of the Enoch Pratt Free Library, and her staff to put together for us here in 1999 a list of the greatest books of the 20th century. And she's been doing that. She's made a couple of visits to our show already this year with parts of her list. We asked to do the same thing with film. We asked this of our film maven from the Orpheum Cinema. Please welcome him today, George Figs, back to the kitchen with the first installment in his series of the greatest films of the 20th century. Hello, George.
Morning, Dan.
How are you?
Good, good.
Nice to see you. So, the greatest films of the 20th century. Hey, George, take on a little project for us, will you?
I'm telling you. Well, the AFI did it. Why can't I?
Yeah. Well, you have your own take on things.
I do.
We decided to cut this up into genres, different genre each month. This one is a big genre. We may not be able to do it all in one sitting. War films.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah, so vast the canon is. We
Yeah.
start George's first one he wants to tell us about. We go back to 1930 for this, All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yep. This is a Lewis Milestone film, one of the first talkies, and it is an anti-war film, folks. This film was shot on ranches in California for $1 million, which was an outstanding budget in those days, and it is still banned in Argentina and Iraq
Because of its anti-war.
because of its anti-war stance. Because and he had to leave. Eric Remarque, who wrote the book, had to leave Germany.
Right. It is
because
a remarkable film.
It is an
We're
amazing
seeing here
film.
famous scene
And it is one of the greatest films of the 20th century.
Yeah. No, I don't think too much of remakes, but HBO did a remake of All Quiet on the Western Front with Ernest Borgnine and Richie Thomas. You didn't like it?
No.
You didn't like it?
No.
I thought it
wasn't
was
as
it's not on my greatest list, but I thought it was
okay, but it was nowhere. It didn't touch All Quiet.
No, I'm just saying. As remakes go, it wasn't bad. Wants to start something already.
2,000 extras on the original.
Next one, 1946. Great film, The Best Years of Our Lives, right after World War II.
One of the best films of our lives. This film stars Harold Russell. You're seeing here, he's an actual veteran. He got 2 Oscars, one for Best Supporting and one Special Oscar from the Army.
All I know is I was in love with you when you left.
His bravery
I'm in love with you
and
now.
his bringing to the American people the experience of the World War II vet. It put it right in your face. And here he is, putting it in your face. This is a beautiful scene and a very powerful scene, a very powerful movie. Hoagie Carmichael is in it. Don't miss the scene in here where he plays a piano duet with Hoagie Carmichael.
Right. It's amazing that it was right after World War II. Right next year, 1946. We have another film to look at here on George's list of the greatest. This is a little bit later. Just watched this again the other day. Great cast of From Here to Eternity, 1953.
Picture. This is also the first time that Frank Sinatra died. You're seeing him die here as Maggio. This is the part that he fought for, and he won. He won the Best Supporting Oscar for it. Everybody in this ensemble cast is magnificent.
Burt Lancaster, Montgomery Clift, you see there.
Montgomery Clift, Burt Lancaster, Ernest Borgnine,
Donna Reed,
Deborah
Kerr, of course.
Everybody is fantastic.
George pushes us ahead to 1980 for the next film, The Big Red One.
The Big Red One is an amazing film because it chronicles from the invasion in Africa of the 1st Division, which is the Big Red One that went all the way through the Normandy invasion and finally liberating this Czechoslovakian death camp.
Right.
And what you're seeing here is Mark Hamill, fresh from Star Wars.
Who we know from Star Wars, right?
Right. And after this, I mean, he made the Star Wars sequels, and that was it. You never see Mark Hamill again.
I wondered what happened to him.
Yeah.
I guess we're not going to see him this spring, right?
I don't think so. Maybe in flashback. But this is a really powerful film, and it's, it's in the canon of war films. It's a lot of critics put it in the top 5.
Okay. George, this next one is a Japanese film.
Yes,
right?
it is.
1985, Ran, spelled R-A-N.
R-A-N, and it's Akira Kurosawa. And this film is in my top 5 films of all time. And
war or otherwise, just war
or otherwise. This is a magnificent film. It's the crowning jewel in Kurosawa's career, and it chronicles pride, honor, the futility of war, and backstabbing. It's actually King Lear with a little Macbeth thrown in. So
Really?
we have the war and the Shakespeare, like we have an Oscar this year, thrown together in this film. But it is a magnificent
Oh, you
film.
turned me on to that one. That's the one I haven't
Folks,
seen
you got to
so far
see
on this
Ron.
list.
If you haven't seen Ron, you've got to see it, even
Okay.
if it's on television, on your tape player.
I'll go wrong with you, George.
Yeah.
You know, when George comes up with one you haven't seen, trust him. Go rent it.
See
Go to
Ron.
Video American. Go wherever.
The guy
and
in
get
the tape room said, "Oh my God, what is this? I got to see it."
Yeah.
When we were doing the dub.
Here's another one that's only been in video for a few years. This is on George's list. Directed by Stanley Kubrick, 1957, Paths of Glory.
This is another anti-war film, a very powerful anti-war film, starring Kirk Douglas and Adolphe Menjou, who, strangely enough, was one of the bad guys in the House Un-American Activities Committee meetings.
Right.
Something Kafka and that whole thing this year
Right.
with Kazan. But these men were wrongfully accused of cowardice. The coward was the commanding officer who forced them to charge this hill that was untakeable.
This was World War I, actually
World War
based
I.
on true incidents of the French army, the trench soldiers.
Right.
Not really, well, they called it mutiny, but they just refused to go out of those trenches anymore.
Well, they were beaten back into the trenches. They were stuck in those trenches for 2 years. They paid for 500 yards with hundreds and hundreds of lives.
Kirk Douglas is in this.
Yeah.
I don't know if we saw him in that clip, but that's he's the leading man.
Yeah.
We mentioned that film because it's on George's list of the greatest war films, but also because it's an early film by the director Stanley Kubrick, who died last Sunday. We had another film George wanted to recommend, another early Kubrick film.
This is one of the flagships of film noir, The Killing.
Sterling Hayden.
Sterling Hayden is a magnificent film noir actor. He is the quintessential B-movie man. And here he is, getting in his clown outfit. They go, and they're knocking over a racetrack.
Yeah.
This is a great
holding up a
caper
racetrack.
film.
Most of the film is spent telling you how they're putting it together, how they're
Right.
plotting the robbery.
Right, and there's some great little cameos in here. People show up later, like Dr. Ben Casey.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
but is
yeah.
he handsome?
He was one
My
of the
God.
heavies.
What's his name? Vince Edwards?
Vince Edwards, one of the heavies
This is
in this.
before he was Dr. Ben Casey. He
Right.
appears in that film, The Killing. That's
Right.
1950, what did we say? 56?
56, yeah.
Early Kubrick. Well, George, thanks for coming by. There are so many more films he'd like to mention. We hope to have them on George's website in the next month or so.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll do this all year with George. By the way, George Figgs leads a discussion of the Academy Awards. Well, what's coming up next Sunday, right? The Academy
21st,
Awards, right?
yeah, the first Sunday broadcast.
George's discussion takes place at Louis Bookstore Cafe on North Charles Street tomorrow night, Monday night, March 15th at 7:39 p.m. Actually, 7:30 p.m. That's my mistake there. It's an earlier start than the 7:39. Anyway, the phone number for Louis, if you want to make reservations, I guess you get dinner with us, right?
Yes, you do. Four-course
Dinner and a discussion. 410-962-1222. Thank you, Mr. Figgs. Nice
you,
to see you
Dan.
with us again. What are you showing at the Orpheum this week?
Gods and Monsters.
Gods and Monsters. Oh, good. That's why you mentioned it in our earlier show. We'll see you next week for the Academy Awards and next month
Alrighty.
with some more of the greatest films of the 20th century.